Welcome to the Crafting Character Podcast. Steve Carter here, and in association with my good friends at Preaching Today and Food for the Hungry, I bring you a podcast that hopefully helps you get better at the craft of teaching and preaching and communicating God's word while always hoping and ensuring our character leads the way. Well, today I'm excited because we're going to talk about character, but from a different angle. I have a friend who I met during my desert season. I'd heard of him, knew of him, but we had never really actually been in the same room together. His name is Alan Briggs. He is an amazing coach and leader and author, podcast host, an amazing podcast called Stay Forth. But this guy has been coaching pastors and leaders, dear friends of mine that he's poured his life into, and they've just raved about the questions he asks and what he just brings and offers. And so he has a book that just dropped called Anti-Burnout. And burnout is what so many of my pastor friends have been wrestling with. And I think it's a character issue. And so I'm excited to welcome my friend Alan Briggs to the Crafting Character Podcast. Alan, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I want to begin like burnout. I mean, you've written different books, but I mean, this topic, why, how did you come to writing Anti-Burnout? There's got to be a story there.
Long story. Several years ago, I was actually working with church planters, and that was a majority of what I did. It was actually training, forming, and coaching church planters along the journey. And I started to watch families derail because it wasn't just the person, the families left in a lurch, people who I thought were doing great, who I literally sat down with the week before at Panera. How's everything going? And everything seemed up and to the right. And then with no warning, they're out. Apparently things weren't great, and it was done. And it wasn't even that there was a moral failure hiding there. It was that there was just an exhaustion, and finally I'm out. And what I realized is that we were training people for the launch, but not for longevity. And it was like, Steve, I had a decision to make. Like, could I just turn my head the other way? And by the way, at the time, there were so many church planting resources, like too many. And there was all these different streams and all these different, residencies and networks and all that. And I had to look and go, we're actually not very unique. We're training people to launch something good and beautiful in a local church. But I had this decision to say, am I going to keep doing it like I was for the launch, the entrepreneurial, the up and to the right, the startup, or am I going to pay attention to this? And so I honestly thought that it would be career suicide. I thought, who wants to go to coaching for the long haul? Like everybody wants spiritual beach muscles or leadership beach muscles. Nobody wants to get healthy. And this was before COVID, and made the decision to say, like, this is the only lens I'm going to coach through is health first and then impact. And I'll tell you, man, it shifted me before it shifted any other clients along the way and any other pastors. I was predominantly coaching pastors at the time. I now get to serve business leaders and nonprofit leaders as well. And man, my eyes were just open once I opened up the conversation to how are you actually doing? And this phrase we say, who you are matters more than what you do. And it was like, people looked at me like it was heretical almost, of like, well, but I mean, they're the same, like they're connected. But we have to believe that our identity matters, our essence, our kidship of God matters first before anything else. And we start to watch everything shift like an axis. And that's what I watched, is things just started to shift in my coaching clients. And to know that they're beloved, to know that their health is worth tending to. And then I saw this crazy thing happen. There was a delayed response, but then their impact would spike later on, sometimes slowly and gradually, but we would watch health first and then impact that was sustainable, carryable, and ultimately for the long haul. And some beautiful things started to happen. But yeah, it was a scary shift and a scary time for me.
I think it's a really brilliant quote. I've never heard anyone say that. We have been preparing people for the launch, but not for longevity. And, I think that oftentimes, whether for us as pastors or for authors, we almost like see ministry or what we're working on as a marathon. And so it's like the launch is just like a marathon. But then you realize, oh, this is not a marathon. This is a triathlon. And it's not just like a little triathlon. This is an Ironman. Like, I did not train for the swim and I did not train for the bike. And that's what I feel like you have been really leaning into and there's so many resources towards one aspect of it. But then I think it's almost as if leaders don't even have the purview because they're so fixated and focused. I just got to launch. I got to launch. That no, you got to finish well. That's the goal. Talk about in the hours, because you've pumped in thousands and thousands of hours with leaders and pastors and the research and the coaching. Talk about some of the real pitfalls and the reasons behind why people burn out.
I had the opportunity to spend time with the late, great Eugene Peterson. Well, probably one of the best gifts of my life was getting a call and said, I don't know what you're doing on these dates. Drop it and come to Kalispell, fly in and just sit at Flathead Lake out on a deck. Actually, a few days after Bono was there, which is wild, just sit with Jan and Eugene. And that shifted something in me. But during those 3 days, the biggest thing that stuck out to me was, first of all, his presence, the way he carried himself, quiet power. And he would sit and he would look so intensely into what you were saying because he truly cared. And he would talk about tamed ambition and how, I believe he was 83 at the time, how the ambition doesn't go away. He talked about himself as a young man who was bent after running faster and more. And I brought that into ministry, is what he would talk about. And he's just nailing us, Steve. I mean, we're just like, oh, like that's me right now. And he looked at us and said, the ambition doesn't go away. It just gets tamed. And that was it. As I was walking by myself and kind of pulled away from the other three guys that were there to sit with that, to go, man, I don't think the right prayer is, Father, take my ambition away, but it's tame it in the right ways. And you've said something similar to say, I still love the chase. I still love doing hard things. Like, work still matters to me. It's fulfilling, but I don't need it like I did before. I can close my laptop and head home and be with my daughter and drive my kids all around town in the evening and go like, I'm not going to miss this piece of it. And so I think so much of it is our ambition has run wild. But on the other side, I believe our cynicism has allowed apathy in. And John Tyson and others have talked about, sort of ambition on one side and apathy on the other. But I really see that is that we've let cynicism convince us that there's nothing for us here. There's nothing new. It's going to be the same old story. You already know the answer. Why would you even think about that? And a guy named Dr. Kurt Thompson, The Soul of Shame, The Soul of Desire, phenomenal leader, psychologist, and therapist, says that the opposite of anxious is not calm, it's curious. Like, I was running when I heard that quote, Steve, and I had to stop. Like, it arrested me because I knew it was true. Like, oh, how many times we're feeling anxious. We are afraid in our souls or in our hearts. And we're like, just calm down, Alan, just calm down. But I think the invitation here is to be curious. Alan, what's going on? What are you afraid of? Father, what am I running from right now? Where do I need engagement instead of escape? And so I think that cynicism that leads us to apathy, I talk about here in the book that the invitation is actually curiosity. And that has been so freeing for me to be curious. What's going on here? And that's what I get to do as a coach all day long. Say, what's going on within your heart or soul or within your family or within your future? What may God be trying to do over here? And so I think it's a tension. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a tension to be managed somewhere in between over ambition, where we are working so we can get our worth. We are working so that we'll be something, as opposed to going, we're something special, completely unique. Nobody else has your spiritual fingerprint. We are kids of the King over here. Our identity is intact and secure. We get to work from that. We get to work from rest, not for it. And then on the other side, to go like, cynicism is quietly killing so many people, especially leaders, that is zapping our optimism and our hope and our belief that it could be different. And so I think it's a call to hold tension. That's certainly the book. I'm not trying to make leadership easy. I'm not trying to have escapism here. I'm actually trying to say, like, we can actually hold it, but the subtitle is a lighter way to live and lead in a heavy world. Like, it's a heavy world. But in the midst of that, we can have a lighter pack as we climb.
That's so good. I'm curious, Alan, what is similar between business leaders and pastors when it comes to burning out? And then what do you find is unique to the pastors that you coach and the business leaders that you coach that you're like, it's so different when it comes to this of how
90%. 90% is the same.
Okay.
And what I realized is, as I started coaching, I thought, oh, these are church planter issues. And I started coaching more established church pastors, been at it a long time. And I'm like, these are pastor issues. I'd find the same things. And then I started coaching nonprofits, and I'm like, maybe this is Christian ministry issues. And then maybe some Christian business leaders, maybe these are Christian issues. What I realized is I boil down to these are actual human issues at our core. And I love addressing those. In fact, I write stripping away as much as possible religious language. And I actually want a friend of mine who knows Jesus, who's a business owner, to be able to give it to his executive team without feeling like it was cloaked in too much religious language. You're still going to hear Jesus. You're still going to feel the salt and sort of the breath of the Spirit on it. But I've been fascinated, Steve. 90% is the same. And that 10% is unique. And so when you walk into a business environment, by the way, it's 2 different languages. And so I actually have to be bilingual in business and in ministry, but especially in church. And so I served as a pastor for 13 years. And so it's like, I get it. And I do a ton of sabbatical coaching with pastors. And we're quoting chapter and verse. We're walking through things together, but I'll have to ask questions in a different way and be bilingual here. So for example, business leaders are always talking about scaling, but pastors are often talking about multiplying or reproducing themselves. And so just to, I think, be aware of some of those things. So once I get past the language in it, I find in one room you walk in and it's like, okay, so how many sites? How many butts in the seat? What's the size of the budget? What's your next whatever thing, campus or program or idea? What programs are you running? And there's sort of this, you have to be running either alpha or have a recovery program or have a, whatever thing. And in business leaders, I've been shocked to find the exact same things are true, but it's just in different things. Like, okay, so the size of this, how big did it grow? How many employees do you have? How much have you scaled? And it's almost can be, how little are you working? And so it's a badge of honor sometimes for a leader to go like, oh yeah, well, I've gotten myself down to working, 15 hours a week and then see what happens. And so it's fascinating to watch among those leaders. But what I find goes straight to the core of it is when you're talking about your identity, when you're talking about who you are, when you're like, hey, I don't care about that right now. And to be in environments where we don't start, I try to, whenever I introduce leaders, especially ones who have a following and, are a big deal in their space, whether they're company or whatever, I hear this same phrase of like, I just need people who care about me. I just need people who care about me. And so I love getting leaders around fire pits and putting ministry and business leaders together. And the first question I ask is never, so what do you do, Steve? But it's, tell me about you, Steve. What do you love? What are some causes that you're passionate about? And I would encourage you, if you're listening, even to think, what's the first question I ask? Because it's going to lead to my assumptions. And so instead of my friend John, who's a real estate agent, I actually go back to John will say, I'm really passionate about men recovering their hearts. And I'm really passionate about orphan care. And I'm really passionate about my wife rising to the next level right now. That's a different conversation than John, the real estate agent, who probably wants me to throw his card out to other people or buy a home from him next time we do. So those are a couple of things that I think that are helpful. But just to realize, man, 90%, let's strip away the other crap. Let's strip away the layers and go like, there's something about a fire that does that, by the way. And when we can just say, tell me about you, Steve. What do you love? Bam, then the connections happen. 2 days later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, it's like, oh yeah, what do you do professionally again? We'll get there. But it just shouldn't, and it can't be the central thing.
I love that. I think it's so powerful. One of the questions that I have had to wrestle to the ground when I've come close to burnout, and the question haunts me. I don't like to think about it, but I feel like I've had in second half of life had to really give it the space and the time. And like you said, get really curious. And the question is, how much is enough? Like how much money is enough? How many speaking opportunities is enough? How many, like, what is enough? And I find that a lot of leaders that I know that have tipped into the burnout or who have struggled with burnout or are close to burnout, we almost don't want to ask that question because it almost feels like a capacity issue. Like, talk about that, because I'm sure that's had to have come up with trying to help people understand the stage of life that they're in. And it's okay to have enough. It's okay that you've got enough. I was with one business leader a number of years ago, worked for Fortune 50 company. He was a CEO. He was speaking at a conference. And I just was curious. And I asked him, I said, hey, you're a Fortune 50 company. And he said a Fortune 10, but it's cool. Fortune 10 company. And I said, yeah. You're the CEO. How many days do you get off? And he's like, I get 12 days off a year. And this is one of them that I'm using to speak at this conference.
Wow.
So in my mind, I was like, what? But that question, what's enough? What do you say to that? To leaders?
Oh, so much. We have to realize the water we're swimming in. We live in a culture of excess.
Yes.
The cultural narrative says more is certainly more. Well, that's true. It's just more of things you don't want to think about. Stress, responsibility, things to handle, things to think about on your day off. And so many leaders believing that if that's the narrative underneath it, it's going to lead us toward all the things like overwhelm, stuckness, exhaustion, because if we believe at the beginning that, then that will be self-fulfilling prophecy, that it will never be enough. And of course, the famous quote from the entrepreneur, I think it was Henry Ford, how much is enough? A little bit more. Maybe it was Carnegie, but it's just that's the phrase. And just a little bit more, just a little bit more. How much do you need financially? Just a little bit more. How much do you need in terms of meaning, travel, opportunity, influence, impact, followers? You name the metric, a little bit more. But we actually have to go back and resist that excess right there. And I love what you're saying. A mentor of mine, he's in his 70s now, actually, Wes Stafford, who was just an amazing, amazing man and kind human. He led Compassion International from this, little guy in downtown Chicago to this just global force for good in the name of Jesus. And we're sitting around a fire and he has this phrase he just drops on you and says, the opposite of poor is not rich, it's enough. Another arresting phrase. The opposite of poor is not rich, it's enough. And he's like, find your enough. Yeah. What is enough? And a way that I love to say this, I got this from James K.A. Smith in Desiring the Kingdom. He says, the good life, this phrase, the good life. And so I turn that into a question of, Steve, what is the good life for you and your family? Describe that. And when we have a picture of the good and the true and the beautiful, we can actually work backwards and reverse engineer. And many times people say, actually, there was a guy out here, he's launching a massive company and I have a co-working space and hub. And he walked past me and it's just like, how you doing, man? And I was like, I can't believe I get to do what I get to do. And I'm just living in gratitude of that and to living in enoughness. And many times God is giving you more and you're like, more than I deserve, more than I would even hope for so many times. And not to say it's as much as the other guy. Nobody asked about the other guy, but it is literally, we have to do the work to drill down and go, what does this look like? And the fact that for example, the luckiest dude, my kids are in this phase where 3 to 7 or 8 p.m. is gold. And the fact that I get to influence people, I'll be, by the way, in 5 or 6 different states today via Zoom.
Yeah.
And I will literally pick up my kids from school today and I will go to my son's play where he will shine. He is a stud in drama. And the fact that I get to do all that in the course of the day and put my head on the pillow, probably after having a good conversation with my wife and celebrating my son's drama victory, it's amazing. Yeah. It's more than enough. And it's a lot to steward, frankly. So it's so good, Steve. It's so important, that word enough, that we could focus there. And the invitation, I think, is just to say, what is the good life? Again, let's tame our ambition by focusing in on things like the good life for me is having essentially a half of the day that I get to work and influence people, and then half of the day that I am directly with my kids from the moment they get out of school. That for me in this season is the good life for me and my family. What is it for you?
So good. My son just this past weekend was in Chicago, the play.
I saw that. Man.
Yeah.
Dude, the picture of you embracing your son. I was like, I'm not crying, Steve. You're crying.
Yeah, I'm so grateful my wife captured that. What plays your son in?
Adam's Family, man.
Let's go.
Oh yeah. He has been practicing lines on me. I'm a drama dad at this point. Never thought I would be. Here we are.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that line by Wes Stafford and find your enough. And this is the other piece I want to get at, because it's find your enough. Mm-hmm. It's not find Alan's enough. Yep. It's not find Wes's enough. It's not find, Mindy's enough. It's not, it's find your enough. But I think what's tricky is just because it's your enough doesn't mean it's going to be their enough. Like when it comes to capacity, so one person might be able to go at a speed that starts in a church front, multiple campuses.
Yep.
Great. Thanks be to God. You got a team and infrastructure and money and all of that. That might not be your reality. And I think what I love about what you constantly do, every time I've been around you, you just like have this way just to subversively get to the identity, like who are you, good life, like all the other stuff, but you're just able to recognize like what is it, like what are you called to do?
Here's what I love. When you change the question, Steve, you change the desire below it.
Come on, talk about that. That's powerful.
The question, you change the desire below it. Because if I go, dude, what's your net worth? Or dude, what's the next thing you're launching? Depending on what environment you're in. But when I say something like, man, what are you celebrating right now as a dad? Mm-hmm. Like, brag on yourself for a second, bro. I know you're showing up well for your kids. What are you celebrating as a dad? Then it's literally going to redirect your attention. We live in the attention economy. People are fighting for our eyeballs, my kids included. And to see literally last night, my daughter was up on a stage and there's hundreds of kids. It's a beautiful moment. And I'm like, am I going to be the dad that shouts my kid out? But at the end, I literally like hands up, yes, as if Michigan had scored a touchdown. Hands up. And I'm like, I'm going to be like just, white bald dude, just pale right in the middle, like hands up, like you did it. It doesn't matter the 460 other kids sang the same song in choir. I can't actually hear my daughter's voice. Like, I want her to see my face because that is why I'm here. I don't care if I look silly, the people behind me. Man, how do we change the questions so that we can change the outputs? And I've been graced to spend time with, older leaders, again, Wes in his 70s, Eugene in his 80s, got some brief time with Dallas Willard and just others to be able to sit with them and go like, how will I be as an old man? And one of the things I'm obsessed with right now is how will I be a gentle and kind and hospitable old man versus a grumpy dude? Yeah. And how do I need to cultivate the things in my 40s and my 50s and beyond where I can live that way? And I got some edges that I need knocked off in the midst of that. So yes, change that. I forget even the question that you ask in that time, but I want to make sure I handle questions in general, because if the question is off, then our trajectory will be off.
No, I think you nailed that right there. I think that's so important. I'm curious because are there hacks, little life hacks to burnout? I realize, for me, sleep and food, not working out. Like there's parts where I feel I'm more susceptible to having my soul get drained. And then when my soul gets drained, it's really hard for me to tame my ambition because I look at that counterfeit God in Tim Keller language. But how do you respond? Are there little hacks?
Yes, I'm laughing because there are lots of them, but they're different for you than for me. And so let me start with essentials. Like you talk about things that for us, we don't feel are very spiritual. So much of my work, Steve, in coaching is where the spiritual meets the practical. And so I'll be like, hey, Steve, tell me about your week. I'm not really that interested in critiquing your week, but your week will tell me what matters to you. And then we'll move backwards to that. Wow, well, I see you have a block every Tuesday of 5 hours for your communication. Why is communication such a big deal to you? And I'm going to chase that back to your heart right there. And I'm like, I notice that I don't see 5 hours a week every Tuesday at scrolling endlessly. Tell me about that. Why is this more important than that? And we start with coaching questions often where it's where you're thriving, where you're struggling, what feels confusing right now, and what's missing right now. And so we try to identify gaps in terms of what's missing and confusing. We try to ask clarity questions and clarify things. And this, once we have awareness, we can take action. Like once we actually know, then we can be faithful. It's all throughout scripture of obedience over here. But like first we need to know, like I've got a gap and now I need to tend to it. And so that's a lot of what I'm trying to do, but I can't do my work very well if I don't trust the Spirit. I could do it probably well enough to get by as a B- where you might not notice, but I would say it's shoddy. I can't do my work very well without trusting the Spirit. And so with that, there are some essentials that have been around forever. And so just let me read just a few of them. I'm looking straight in the book here. Sleep, routine, spiritual connection, exercise. Dude, exercise is the hinge point. The older we get, by the way. Work boundaries, caffeine and adrenaline. I dive into here. Have we been addicted to adrenaline? People have said pastors are addicted to caffeine and adrenaline. And I was like, no, I just have 6 cups a day and I can't go without it. I'm not addicted. It's just a dependency, Steve. Diet, technology, relational connection, like these are essentials. But it almost, throughout the book, we start big. And it's tough, man. The first chapter, it's like we have a cultural issue, but we move all the way down to these, James Clear calls them atomic habits. And I call them $10 practices that have $10,000 returns. And they're the things you do every day. Maybe for you, it was the walks in the desert, the walks in the neighborhood. For me, walks with my wife, things like that. But I would say there are 3 to 5 things you can actually add to your life that are fills, and 3 to 5 things that are drains that you can just take out of your life. And that small changes over time. And the trick is it's often taking about 6 weeks for leaders to really see the difference. And sure, there are some little gains and some buoyancy in your soul that kind of lifts a little bit. But what's interesting too is that not only is it about 6 weeks that we need for that replenishment to like, man, I'm actually changing here and feel it. But I've walked with countless leaders, dozens of leaders through sabbatical. That's a large bit of what I do is sabbatical coaching with leaders, helping them prepare for it, to navigate it, and to reorient afterwards. And one of the biggest surprises for me, did not see this coming, Steve, is that the first thing to thaw out during a sabbatical is actually our body. We just tend to just crash quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like the most spiritual thing you can do for the next few days, Steve, is probably put your sweatpants on. And if you feel like napping, sleep. Sleep in. We think about this like Elijah's burnout story. I think so much of it after the victory was the dude was exhausted. The dude was probably riding on so much adrenaline. And then suddenly going like, man, this massive victory, oh, it's all going to fall apart. And you just see him spiraling within that. What's the body first? Well, then what's taken care of, right? And it's like, so you have ravens out in the desert bringing food and rest and bread. And it's like, then you come alive. And so tend to the body first. And then the mind second. The mind tends to stop spinning and kind of thaw and not create sermon analogies, when you see a billboard or whatever. And the mind is not spinning. Well, then your heart tends to thaw. You're more present relationally to other people. What I found is the last thing to thaw out is your soul. But we have to go through the body, the mind, and the heart first. That's been true of about 90, maybe 95% of people throughout sabbatical. Again, I didn't see it coming, but I watched long enough to go, man, don't go to a monastery week 1. You actually just need to sleep.
Yeah.
And we may need to focus on your diet again. Are you living off of sugar? Are you living off of pastries all the time or donuts? Or, just literally, it's different for all of us, but it's also the same for all of us. And that's been really fascinating to watch.
Man, that's so remarkable. I think what's also, really, really important is some of us pastors, if you're listening, you have routine, and the routine is getting you the actual results in your heart, your mind, your body, and your soul. And that's why I think a coach is so important. When I saw the Tiger Woods documentary, and he, after winning 3 or 4 majors in a row, calls his like driving coach and was like, we gotta break down my swing again and rebuild it up. You just won 4 in a row, and you have this required humility to ask someone to help you get better. And I think for me, I have a preaching coach. For me, like, there are people in my life that I'm like turning to say, hey, help me get better. Alan, for you, you are a coach, and I think a great one at that. And maybe some of you pastors are like listening and going, man, I just need someone to ask me those questions, because sometimes those questions, it's a, I love how you said that it's a $10 cost with a $10,000 investment, like it just a return, like it's like that sense of, here are these opportunities to have a coach speak into something and just reflect back. It might just help you so much in the short term, but it will dearly help you finish the race well. And that's I know Alan's heart. That's why I love him. That's my heart. Alan, I'm curious too, when you think about the book Anti-Burnout, and I love the subtitle. I think it's fantastic. Is there a chapter that you were like, oh man, this is the thing that like I want everyone, like I come alive. And I know like every chapter matters, but like there's sometimes that. So that's one part of the question. The second part of the question is, sometimes, you write the book, it goes through an editing phase, then they got to like find a cover, then they got to print it, and they got to, put it out. And during that time, you have a couple more conversations, and you're like, oh, I wish I could have smuggled that concept into another chapter. Is there anything else that you're like, oh, that I wish I would have been able to, if this is part 2 of an anti-burnout book, I would add. So what's your favorite chapter? And if there's anything or a thought or a quote that you would have added that you came to like later?
Yeah, the second one first. Writers talk about having to kill your darlings.
Yeah.
And it's so painful because you see stuff that's actually working. And really, this book is tools, questions. It's really like a coaching experience put in a book, which I just think is the best coaching deal out there, to be able to take something that's very expensive and timely, or requires a lot of time, and to go like, hey, for like 8-10 hours, if you do the questions and reflect, you can get through this stuff slowly. And then there are tools and some other things. And so I actually opted for more of those, frankly, because I had to think through the lens of empowerment versus dependency. And how do we actually empower to give you, the reader, who's soaking in as a learner, as a pastor, as a leader, everything that you need to be able to keep going. And that was really my filter. And it was painful, man. So I had to eliminate several things from this. And I might have just eliminated my next book from it to say like, dude, this isn't my final score here. Right. This isn't my, my last symphony here, God willing, within this. But my grade was this: do I want to be sitting and equipping teams and talking with people over this for the next decade? So everything in this is a decade message for me. And the rest of the stuff, I had to trust the process and trust the filters and go, the other ones may be timely, but like, I want this to some level to be timeless over the next decade. With so much change, that's a huge ask right there. So that was one of them. The middle of the book for me is actually a hinge point where you move from, here's this high level problem that's honestly, frankly, so overwhelming. What do I do? How do we even help this? This is a massive cultural issue. All the way down to, here are 7 shifts that I believe every leader has to make. And what's interesting, Steve, is some of those you're doing those currently and feeling good about them. Some of them you made several years ago, but there's usually 1 or 2 that are going to stick out to a leader. And so far, the feedback is they're all different for people. Those have been ones I've been walking people through, and it's amazing. I have several of those I have stories with about the actual leader that made the shift, and here's the fruit on the other side of it. And so to be doing this long enough to have stories with it, I've changed the names on them, but it's their stories. Some of them are pastors in there, has been beautiful to watch. And so you'll notice again that I try to pull away the religious language from those and say like, man, these are just shifts that high capacity leaders are going to have to make. And we get aided with the Spirit And so we get aided with extra discernment. We get aided sometimes with just a moment, a thought, a prompting. And so do we have a competitive advantage? Absolutely. The Spirit is that. And yet these shifts, you're going on a bear hunt. You can't go over them. You can't go under them. You got to go through them. And so part of it is literally just like feeling the pain as you move through these, like brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, or, like learning stick for the first time, whether you're 40 years old or not. Like we're just not good at new things.
Yeah.
And we say these are skills, not pills. And man, we just would love to ingest this and take it in. But like, you're literally learning a new way to lead. What got you here up to this point isn't going to get you there. And not only that, Steve, it will hold you back from the way you used to be communicating. If you just hit play on that, you're going to plateau or worse. And you're not bringing your best. Yeah. And so it actually holds you back from the future God's invited you into if you do not take on new and at times scary new skills that frankly we suck at first.
Friends, Alan Briggs, you just got like a taste of the wisdom and the brilliance the Lord has entrusted to him. He is a good man, one of the good ones, a man of character and integrity, someone I just deeply, deeply, deeply admire and respect. Hey, Alan, where can people find you?
Yeah, stop on over, stayforth.com, also antiburnoutbook.com. And here's a promise that I want to make to everybody. So you're a pastor, your elder team, people lead companies, and they can take a Christian book and read it themselves. But what grieves me is they can't take it into the boardroom maybe, and they have to be sort of appropriate or at least careful with that. And I understand that. But I promise you that I've done the best possible, not only to help you, but to help your elder take it in with his team. And it's been a great gift to sit around with teams who do not function anything like church teams, Steve. Like church teams would be in serious trouble if they said these things and had this kind of banter. And now I'm invited into some of these rooms and actually take it as a holy privilege to be a follower of Jesus as well in that room. And so that's a promise. And also if there's somebody who needs this, my email's there. You can hit me up and I will send this out to anybody who needs it. I don't view this as a book. We're not trying to sell so many copies to get out there. I actually would love to address this to a friend of yours. So if you know somebody who needs this, you send me their address. Steve, I know we got one in the mail to you. Same as that. I want to make that promise because I want to see a decade from now that we've made headway. Because everything I see, unfortunately, is going down and to the left in many ways. But what if we were going up and to the right in terms of what truly the good life was for us and for health and ultimately the impact that follows? So, Steve, right back at you, man. Appreciate your work. So grateful for you. The fact that you're like digging in on character here is incredible. We need more of that. So thank you, man.
Well, thank you. Hey, I want to just double click on one thing you just said. And I don't think I've ever talked about this on the podcast, but one of the things I do with my elder teams, and even in my own personal development is, every 90 days, I try and think about something when it comes to the craft of preaching, something that comes like think about something in the 90 days around my character, something I just want to just kind of work on. Maybe it's internal, some formation side, but I'm also trying to think through, are there topics that are either cultural or biblical that I just need to wrestle with? And part of it is I will bring those before our board and we'll like read a book together, and then we'll chop at a board meeting around, and then sometimes even have the author, we'll just reach out to them. Sometimes they say no, sometimes they say yes, but to have them kind of join an elder team meeting to talk. And so we've been talking about like the church called Tove, like how do you be a Tove church, especially in Chicagoland. And so Dr. Scott McKnight and Laura Barringer came, but I say that to go, I think that's a really great idea, because burnout is unfortunately affecting church staffs and business cultures and the people in our congregations. And so when you can like actually do that in a way where you can just have that be a conversation, maybe over like an elder meeting, and I just think man, it just gives you the opportunity for shared language, shared connection. You get to learn stuff. It's great sermon prep too. So, and then if you could even bring in an Alan for that, I know he'll help you and help your team get better. So Alan Briggs, Anti-Burnout. Say the subtitle again, because I love it so much.
A lighter way to live and lead in a heavy world.
In a heavy world. I love it. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in to the Craft and Character podcast. If I can ever serve you, Steve at steveryancarter.com. But also get that book, get Anti-Burnout. I really believe that there is so much when it comes to moral failings that break my heart. And I just keep thinking too, a pastor that burns out and doesn't finish the race well, it still has collateral damage on a community. It's still the person who is entrusted didn't finish. And we don't want that for you. Alan doesn't want that. I don't want that for you. So take this as an invitation to wrestle and learn some new skills, because I actually believe this book will really, truly help you finish the race well. Much love, everyone. Until next time, grace and peace.